Surfacing is a novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood, published by McClelland and Stewart in 1972. It was her second novel. Surfacing has been described by commentators as a companion novel to Atwood's collection of poems, Power Politics, which was written the previous year and deals with complementary issues. The novel, grappling with notions of national and gendered identity, anticipated rising concerns about conservation and preservation and the emergence of Canadian nationalism. It was adapted into a movie in 1981. Plot introduction. The book tells the story of a woman who returns to her hometown in Canada to find her missing father, accompanied by her lover, Joe, and a married couple, Anna and David. The unnamed protagonist meets her past in her childhood house, recalling events and feelings, while trying to find clues to her father's mysterious disappearance. Little by little, the past overtakes her and drives her into the realm of wildness and madness. Themes in the novel. Separation. Separation is a major theme of Surfacing. This is established in the first chapter, when the narrator is shown to be politically dispossessed as an English speaker in Quebec, at a time in which Quebec was aspiring to become an independent French-speaking nation. The narrator also feels disconnected from the people around her, equating human interaction with that of animals. For example, while overhearing David and Anna have sex, the narrator thinks of an animal at the moment the trap closes. The mouthpiece for feelings of nationalism is extremist David, who claims Canada would be better without the fascist pig Yanks, and suggests they be driven from the country by attack beavers. Feminism. Feminism, a theme in many of Atwood's novels, is explored through the perspective of the female narrative, exposing the ways women are marginalized in their professional and private lives. Summary of the novel. Surfacing follows the story of our unnamed narrator, as she travels back to Quebec to search for her father. Having not been there for a few years, she returns with her boyfriend, Joe, and her friends, Anna and David, who are married to each other. On the way they encounter one of her father's friends, Paul, and he tells them that he has no information on her father's whereabouts and that he hasn't been seen in a long time. The group are introduced to Evans, their guide, who takes them to the narrator's father's island. Once there, she searches for clues and becomes sure that he is still alive. During her time on the island, our narrator also works on her career as a freelance illustrator, currently creating artwork for a book of fairy tales, although she is too preoccupied with her father's disappearance to focus properly. As the novel progresses, we begin to uncover more about David and Anna, seeing their tumultuous relationship. David is often insulting Anna and telling her what to do, such as demanding she wears makeup. Our narrator describes how he is a womanizer and how it makes her uncomfortable to see Anna treated in that way. On a blueberry-picking trip, Joe surprisingly proposes to the narrator, but she turns him down and tells him about her previous relationship where she left her husband and child. Once they return back to the cabin, Paul comes back with an American called Maelstrom, who is a member of a Detroit wildlife agency. He wants to purchase the island, but the narrator turns down his offer. Believing that her father is still alive, she tells Paul, who is doubtful. The novel shows different political aspects present at the time, as David accuses Maelstrom of being a member of the CIA and is contributing to an American invasion of Canada. Whilst searching through her father's belongings for clues of his whereabouts, the narrator comes across a map with marked locations where her father was planning on carrying out research on Indian wall paintings. The whole group go on a camping trip to see the wall paintings, and as they set off, they find a dead blue heron hanging from a tree. David has to film it as he is making a film called Random Samples. The heron is possible symbolism for the destruction of nature and the Americanization of Canada. This image has a haunting effect on the narrator. On the trip, we begin to see the dark side to Anna and David's relationship, as Anna reveals to the narrator that David will be angry she has forgotten her makeup. The group visit one of the sites on the map. But there are no wall paintings and the narrator is disappointed. As they travel to the next site, they encounter a group of Americans with a boat brandishing the American flag. However, on closer inspection, the narrator discovers they are actually Canadians and the flag is only a sticker. We find out they are the ones who killed the heron, and because of this the narrator describes them as Americans. The narrator discovers that the wall paintings are under the lake. When the group travel to the lake, we witness David maliciously teasing Anna, humiliating her in front of her friends by demanding she take her clothes off for his film project. The narrator confides in David and discusses why he is horrible to Anna. He says he does it because she often cheats on him. To see the paintings, the narrator dives down into the lake a number of times. On one dive she sees something that causes her to scream and quickly come back to the surface. Joe had followed her to the lake and angrily demands to know what she is doing down there. She doesn't respond to them and is in a haunted trance, and she comes to the realization that what she saw floating below was in fact her aborted baby. With no reason, the narrator now believes that she had an affair with her art teacher and was forced to abort their baby. She no longer mentions her earlier story of leaving her husband and child. Things become worse for the narrator as she starts believing that her father marked the sites on the map as they are sacred Indian art pieces. She decides to find them all and thank the gods for giving her what she believes is the power. Whilst in this mentally unstable state, Joe reaches out to her a number of times, but she completely blanks him. Joe's belief that he has power over the narrator leads him to try to rape her. He soon stops as she insists it will make her pregnant. Soon after, David now approaches the narrator and tries to seduce her, stating that Anna and Joe are having an affair. However, the narrator doesn't give in to his advances. A police officer arrives, and David breaks the news that the narrator's father is dead, and they have found his body. She refuses to believe this as she is still certain he is alive. In her manic state, she pretends that she has forgiven Joe for cheating on her and the two have sex. The narrator hopes she will fall pregnant and this baby can replace her aborted one. The novel ends in the group leaving the cabin, but instead of going with them, the narrator abandons them. She takes David's film and destroys it and leaves by boat. Now she is alone on the island and she begins to become crazier as she destroys her own artwork, the furnishings of the cabin, and takes on an animalistic form. She abandons her clothes, begins eating plants and lives in a burrow. Eventually, the narrator begins to recover from her madness and realizes that she actually loved Joe. Paul returns with Joe and the narrator plans to reunite with him. The novel ends with the narrator looking out at Joe, ready for him in the cabin. End of the summary. Thank you.